Alrighty, we're back. Now, the picture that should be forming in your mind is that a combination of these tools is the only way you really have true dexterity and delicacy and accuracy in here. So I'm just going to use the history to walk this back a couple steps. Hardly done anything really, right? But we did do a little bit of playing around with stuff. Let me go back up here. See, I'm just sort of scrolling through. Oh, and I would like you to know this, right? So it's remembering a certain number of steps. How many? 20 by default. Now, if you're doing a bunch of different things, it will remember a good long list of those. But you notice like lasso here, that was taking me seconds, and it recorded each tiny use of the lasso as a separate step. So the history, kind of fills up rapidly when you're doing repetitive stuff. Okay. Now, let me bring it back to the starting point. Open, right? That's where we were. Away goes the history. Okay, from a standing start here, using a mix of these tools to select, let me control 0 to get everything on screen. What could you do? Well, this is a little weird. I might not really do this in reality, but for example, I can make a rectangle across most of the sky right here. I've got not quite all of it, but a good bit of it. Then I can grab my lasso tool, make sure it's actually on add to selection, and I can kind of go scooping along down into the ground here, kind of getting the little bits that I need, as needed. I can then come in here, turning it into subtract from selection, although I'm going to leave him where he is for right now, and kind of get back into the business of moving through the grass and putting in a little, taking out a little, right? And this is not perfect, but it just shows you some of the tools that are a little bit counterintuitive are actually pretty handy. And once again, the quick selection tool, it absolutely does a lot of things really well. It just didn't do a big open area of sky very well. At this point, I'm taking it away from the selection. So I'm going to go down here. Actually, I want to add to the selection. I'm going to do sky, and I'm going to get his leg as well, right? Okay, so this may be more about selecting than you ever bloody wanted to hear, but the thing is, it's the key. You're going to struggle with it, and it's absolutely essential. Now that I've said that, let me deselect and show you something that makes this maybe look a little bit ridiculous. It isn't ridiculous, but it might make it look that way a little bit. Now, if you have something like the quick selection tool in your hand, and you look up here on the options bar, you'll see a big button that says select subject. What's the subject? Well, that's based on an algorithm by Photoshop saying, I bet I know what the subject is. So let me click select subject. And let's see what it did. It selected the guy. How did it do? It did pretty well. It got the mass of him up here, and it did some things that this automatic select is often not especially good at. It doesn't recognize the importance of the front of this shoe, or of having that little bit of daylight there, or of having this bit between his thumb and his fingers selected, and so on. However, if you've taken that step, then it's pretty quick work going in and doing the rest yourself, right? So here's a little bit that they weren't smart enough to pick up in the algorithm, and I'm selecting his shoe. It's classically these little bits of bright and dark bleed over where it really doesn't know what it's looking at, and it doesn't do an awesome job. I'll do a little takeaway here, pull out this shadow maybe, right? Then up here, I'm going to fall back on my old friend, the magic wand tool, and I'm going to say add to selection. Oh, it is selected, right? I have to take it away. Oops, I'm using the quick select. And there we go. And it did a pretty good job anyway. And then if I'm going to nuance this all the way down to the goddamn hand, then remember, work close. Working close is the only way you can do this well in many cases. Right? There we are. It's not awesome, but it's pretty much there, right? Control 0 to show it on screen again. And there we are. And then if we wanted to get weird with this thing, we can. I mean, we can take this guy and tell you what, let's pick a change of subject. This is a good point to do that. So signing off and about to sign back on.